Good morning, everybody. I hope you are well. The last videos that I uploaded, we were describing data definition languages, and we looked at the structure of the database, where we were in position to see how we create a database, how we create the different tables, and the structure within them. Yesterday, I uploaded, I gave you the video for creating, how we do it in SQL. I showed you how we open WAMP, turning on services, and then going in the MySQL console, and then also creating the database and the tables within it. So today, after looking at DDL, today we are going to look at DML. And in DML, if you still remember, we said that DML looks at how we manipulate data in our database, and the manipulation of data is through 4 statements, that is insert, select, update, and delete. So those are the 4 statements that we are going to constantly keep using in DML. So we have what we refer to as the literals, and we're saying that the literals are constants that are used in SQL statements. So the literals, for example, if you can say the name is a literal, like first name, last name, date of birth. So those particular values that we use refer to as literals in combination with the SQL statements. So we have all, and we're saying that all non-numeric data values, they have to be enclosed with a single quote when you are in the database, and then all numeric values are supposed to be left without any quotes. So we use literals to insert data into a table. So for example, when you can say insert into a table called student, but in bracket, then you can say you're going to insert the first name, the last name, the date of birth, etc, etc. Okay, now here we have example 1, which we are going to use. This is a table called student with all the different attributes and the tables, and the values within it. So in the third video that I sent you, you can now create a database, create the table, and then also create all those attributes. So you're going to do that, and then in the DML, we are going to see how do we insert the data in the table that you have created. We shall also have this example of a table called program with those different attributes, and then also we shall have a table called course with those different attributes. So the reason of creating these 3 tables is, 1, we want to see how do we enforce the referential integrity rule in cases where you have 2 or more tables. So that is why you have those 3 tables, because we need to look at the referential integrity rule. So we all know the statement for creating the table from our previous lecture. We said that you create the table. This is the generic syntax for creating the table. But then in DML, we said we're going to use the insert. So this is the generic syntax for inserting the values in the table that you have created. So it is insert into the table name. So in this case, you're going to say insert into student. So then the columns. So you're going to insert this kind of insertion allows you to insert data a row at a time. So for example, here, if you have specified registration number, so that means you have to specify all the columns in the order you created them. So if you created a table and you said registration number, first name, last name, so even here at the time of insertion, registration number will appear first and then last name and first name. So when you say after specifying the columns, then you go to the values, okay? Then we are supposed to add the values. So the values for registration number, you add it there. The values for first name, you add them there, and so on and so forth. So we're saying that, but what you should take note of is this particular statement will only allow you to insert data in one row at a time. Please ensure to enclose the date values and the character values in single quotes. Then we go to this is so we're saying we have two primary ways of adding data in the database, data in a table. This is the first one. So the first one is where you're only inserting in each and every particular row, one at a time. This is the example. This I got from the tables that I told you to create. And then the other way of inserting data in the database is using subqueries. Now the subqueries will allow you to insert many rows in the table on a go. So that means you can do that. You don't have to do it severally, but you can just create one statement that will allow you to put all the data in the table at once. But we shall look at subqueries as its own topic. So we're saying that in either case, using the values clause or the subquery, the order and the number of the columns listed must match the order and the number of values that you're going to insert. So in other words, if you have specified that you're going to insert values in 3 columns, then that is imperative that you specify the columns and then also the values that you're going to insert. So if a column list is omitted, then ensure that all the values listed are in the default order of the column in the table. So we're saying if you look at this statement, insert into student values. Now, in this case, we have not specified the columns that you want to insert to. So by default, if you write this, then the system will automatically put this on registration number, on first name, on last name, and on the date of birth. So this will be the default values that are going to be populated. It is not wrong, it is right. But sometimes you want to insert values in only specific columns. So that means you have to specify the columns that you want to insert values in. Okay. Inserting rows with null values. So we're saying that when using the implicit method, okay, that is specifying the columns you are interested in, eliminate the column names of those that you are not interested in. So in this case, if you look at this table called student, you're only interested in 2 columns, that is registration number and last name. And therefore, the data will be put in, the values will be for only those specified columns. And then we have the explicit method. And this we're saying that it is one must specify the null keyword for the columns whose values are not going to be specified. So in this case, that if you're not going to specify, okay, the columns that you need, then you can put null values. So in this case, you're telling us that for these particular values where the nulls are, there are some values that are supposed to be there. So depending on what you want to do. Okay, non-values must be supplied for columns that are defined as not null. That is automatic. We said all values that you have specified with a not null constraint, you have to give the values for that particular column. So the SQL terminology, you have the keyword, we have the clause, and then we have the statement. Okay. So the SQL statement, when writing the select statement, the following should be at the back of one's mind. First, the SQL statement can be written on 1 or more lines, so it is not It's not to mean that you can only write it on one line or you can write it on several. It depends on what you want as a user. Then SQL statements are not case sensitive. For example, insert into, select, group by, they are not case sensitive unless indicated. Keywords are usually written in uppercase and other words in lowercase. So the keywords, for example, you can say, if there's a table called student, you can decide to have the first letter as an uppercase, then the rest of the words in lowercase. The new lines and indents can be used for readability purposes. Sometimes when you go to your MySQL console, you realize that you can create a very long line, okay? But sometimes it's a bit unreadable. So you can introduce new lines, you can indent the lines such that your code can be readable. Then keywords cannot be split or they cannot be abbreviated, okay? So your keywords, for example, insert, into, okay? Or alias or group by, you cannot split them, neither can you abbreviate them. The basic select statement, we're saying that, now this is the select statement, we're saying that the simplest form of the select statement must include the select clause. This specifies the columns that you want to retrieve from the table. Then the from clause, it specifies which table you are retrieving the columns from. So the generic syntax here, for example, if you look at the first line, this asterisk means all. So you're saying that select all from the table name. So you're saying, in other words, when you say all, you're saying all the rows. Select all rows from table called Hasifah or table called student. You can say select distinct. So in other words, you're saying you want only the distinct columns to be displayed. So you can select this distinct column from the table name. Then you can also select expression. In SQL, we use aliases, okay? That's one thing that you need to be aware about. And what are these aliases? The SQL aliases are used to give a table or a column in a table a temporary name. Is just used temporarily. So an alias will only exist for as long as the query still exists. But after the query doesn't exist, also the alias will not exist. Okay, so sometimes we use these aliases to make the column names readable. So this is the select statement continued. We are saying that select and from clauses are mandatory. They are mandatory. So when you're looking at this, the order of the execution is you select from, you need to tell us the tables, where this condition is to tell us where are we, okay? Where you're trying to specify the kind of criteria that should be met for the select statement. Group by is where you're trying to to categorize your data in groups. For example, you can say software engineering students, computer science students, so you're grouping them. Having condition, for example, software students having let's say CGPA above 4, okay? So that is what the having means. And then the select column list, you're telling us the different columns that you're going to select from. And then the order by is the one that tells you either you want it in descending order or ascending order. Still, the order by, you specify the column which you want to either display as in ascending or to display in descending. Okay, so this is the end of this video, the end of the 15 minutes. I'll have to restart.